Let me tell you a little bit about the person who will be who will be in the next session, Miss Karishma Upadhyay, to have a conversation with Jerry Pinto on his book, The Education of Yuri. Jerry and Karishma, please come and take your seats on the stage. Jerry Pinto lives and works in Mumbai. He has won the Crossword Prize, the Hindu Lit for Life Award, the Sahitya Academy Award, and the Wyndham Campbell Award from the Benek Library, Yale, for his novel M and the Big Whom by Aleph Books. His latest novel is The Education of Yuri by the Speaking Tiger Books. To have the conversation with him, we have Karishma Upadhyay, a film journalist who is considered to be a specialist on Bollywood. Working across media, she has led editorial teams at several prominent media houses. She has been the entertainment editor at Times Now, the celebrity editor at People magazine, and has contributed articles for a number of publications, including India Today, Times of India, Hindustan Times, Telegraph, The Hindu, and Forbes magazine. The stage is yours.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, Jerry. Before I start, I have to tell you a little bit that Jerry and I have a bit of a history. He taught me for about 2 years. So if I seem nervous, it's because I feel like this is an assignment that I have to give in. But yeah, I mean, I've been a Jerry fangirl for pretty much as long as I can remember. Uh, could we start the session with you reading a part from The Education of Yuri? Yes, please. I finished reading this book this morning at about 5 a.m. when I woke up to finish it. And it both broke my heart and just made me so happy. So if you haven't read it, I really encourage you to pick up copies because it's beautiful.
Hi, can you see me at the back? Because when I was sitting there, I couldn't see people's faces. So are you all right with me standing, or do you want me to sit? Or I could do this, which is what both me and Karishma could do. We could sit up here. Is that better for you? At the back. Say yes, say no. Yes, better, no? Karishma, up.
Really?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. I haven't painted my toenails.
That's okay. I covered my toenails so that no one knows if they're painted or not. Okay. Now, when I started to write this book, which is about coming of age, a boy coming of age, about your age, he's about 15, 16, and he's growing up, and he becomes about 20 by the end of the book. Most Bildungsroman, as they are called, these books about growing up are basically about getting political, getting poetical, getting sexual. Very few people think about Homo faber, or the man who makes money, the man who does, the man who works. How do young people think about themselves economically when they're thinking? That's also a question that we need to address. And here Yuri is talking to his best buddy, not his best buddy, his second bestie, who is a chap called Arif. Yuri and Arif are completely different people, okay? Yuri is the kind who reads Shakespeare through a whole summer vacation. Arif is the kind of person who has heard about Shakespeare and knows and makes dirty jokes about him shaking his spear. Okay, he's that kind of person. So he's on the other side of the spectrum. And he drives a motorcycle and he pushes the motorcycle into the traffic, and he's like that. So Yuri's got a question in his head. How do I earn money? Yuri asked Arif on the bike one day. Being a boyfriend was proving expensive. Bhavna is his girlfriend. Bhavna and he hadn't been anywhere indoors since that afternoon. Her parents were back, and although both had jobs, the servant was back too. So it was samovar or the wayside inn every day. Even split, those bills hurt. What do you want money for? Arif asked. I'll give you. Easy. I'll just have to pay you back. But if you have an emergency, some dame is cutting you, just tell. Because Arif assumes that Yuri has got into trouble. Some woman is saying, chal, abhi tu paisa nikal. Give me money for having had some affair with me. Nothing like that, said Yuri, annoyed at the implication that he might be in a position to be blackmailed. I just want to make money on a regular basis. For what, says Yuri, Arif? For Bhavna. Then do what you Intel types do, give tuitions. Tuitions, said Yuri. Yeah, all the Garib Nawaz scholars give tuitions. It's a thought, cheap and best, said Yuri, said Asif. How do I get them? Meri jeb mein hai tuitions le. Bhai mere, buy one midday. Look in those chota ads, na? They always say want this, want that, ye, wo, udhar milega. And so it was that Yuri presented himself at the Sahasrabuddhe Professional Tutors Bureau, which I think should be enough. He then begins an economic life as well, but his economic life is merely to fund his sexual life. Because he wants to, I mean, girlfriends are expensive. You women in the audience are smiling, smirking, and all the men are nodding.
Thank you for that. Though I think we could have gone with something longer. But Yuri Fonseca, though I can't stop singing that Fonseca song every time I mention his name or read it. He sees himself as a poet. He even starts, to write poetry a little bit. He lives in Mahim, studies liberal arts at Elphinstone. Sounds an awful lot like you, but I believe this is not autobiographical.
Okay, I once wrote a book on Leela Naidu. Neela Naidu was a 65-year-old woman who had once been one of the 5 most beautiful women in the world. When I met her, I said, you were one of the 10 most beautiful women in the world. She said, 5. Okay. Let's get it clear. Okay. And through my life, I look like this, see? But through my life, I always wanted to walk into a room and stop conversation. I wanted everybody to turn and look at me and say, whoa, what is that? Okay. It never happened, but when I was writing Leela Naidu, I wrote it as an autobiography, I could be a 65-year-old woman who had been beautiful, so stunningly beautiful that when she was 8 years old, someone had taken a photograph of her and fell in love with the photograph so much that he hired a billboard and put it up on Lake Geneva for 6 weeks so that she would be this beauty would be visible. I could be that person. When you are writing, you can be anyone you want to be. Why would you want to be yourself? Why would you want to turn yourself into something on the paper? But who have you got? What do you know about? You know about yourself. So you take yourself, you take little bits of yourself, you take bits and pieces, and you remold them into something that may sound like you, that may feel like you, but is not you. Because if I were to put myself into a novel, I would kill the novel. It would kill the novel. A whole person, the Talmud says it beautifully. They say, you do not kill a man, you extinguish a universe. Now think about trying to fit a universe into 300 pages. Doesn't happen. You can only squeeze it down. Rond ke, piece ke, cut ke. You take what you know about humanity and you create somebody who becomes then a credible character in a novel. But you cannot do it without some form of violence to the entirety of the human experience. That violence is part of the work of the author.
But when a story is, in a setting that you're familiar with, yay, us, how difficult or how easy is it not to bring in your own experiences, your own memories?
I think, okay, lovely. Experience and memory, these are 2 very different things. And thank you, Karishma, for that well-worded question. Experience is universal. Memory, on the other hand, is hugely personal. if you have ever talked to a friend about a fight you had, right? Like you argued with a friend and that friend said, you are cheap, and like you said, yeah, you're very expensive. Nah? 2 days later, you say to your friend, but you called me cheap. And she said, I never said. Where I said, I would never speak like that. And you say, you said. And the friend says, I never said, I'm not like that. I never say anything. You may never have bought coffee and I pay for the coffee every time, but you are, and you may be actually cheap, but I would not say. And you have another fight because of memory. So both experience and memory are your raw material, right? They're there on the table in front of you. Now what you've got to do is choose memory and choose the painful memory. Choose the experience without which you would not be the person that you are. Those experiences. For me, the experience of standing up and reading a poem of my own for the first time was shattering. I found my hand shaking, and I'd been like, I'd spoken in public, I'd won debate, competitions, elocutions, the usual thing anyone who speaks English the way I do would do in college. And I was reading my poem, and I thought, I have never had it so difficult. I have never been so naked in public. And that nakedness, that feeling of nakedness is what I wanted to give Yuri when he's writing poetry. Because when he's writing when you're writing, say, a piece, Karishma, when you're writing about Parveen Babi, you should all come for the Parveen Babi talk tomorrow. Preeti Gill will also be on stage. Yeah. When you're writing about Parveen Babi, you are also in that book. You can't not be. Even the fact that you chose Parveen Babi is part of that book. So is Parveen Babi autobiographical? Yes. Because all the work that we do, Sharana's book on Shah Rukh Khan, even if there is a distancing, there is a this young woman and there is a that young woman, and all of their responses, that choice to commit some of your time and your life to the writing of a book is part of your autobiography. What act of writing is not autobiographical at that level?
But when you're mining your experiences, like you said, and the days that when you're putting that down on paper, are those days tougher than the other days of writing?
I think, there are times when, if you are having a easy day writing, you are writing shit. Okay, you're just like, forget about it. Enjoy that moment. It comes and the words are, and you're enjoying it and thinking, at last, Jerry, you know how to write now, and it is coming so easily and fluently, and you read it 10 days later and you think, were you out of your mind? Are you completely mad? Would you ever let this out in public? And you cancel everything and you start again. On the other hand, the days when you absolutely labor and you suddenly become this romantic, and you think, now watch me, how difficult this act of writing is. Surely the words that come from this pain must be glorious words. This is this is the way I should write every day. I should pull a raw nerve from my forearm and I should dip it in my blood and I should smear sheets of parchment and this will be real writing. And you read that 10 days later and it is purple prose. It is ugly with self-pity. All of it eventually seems to be failing, flailing, and then finding later that just by accident, you managed to write a good passage. You were not perhaps consciously thinking of writing. You were not consciously thinking, I won so many prizes. This will win me more prizes, which also is a thought that comes and goes in the back of your head. Okay? But it happens when suddenly, oh shit, I can't even say when it happens. Maybe as an experiment the next time I'll try and figure it out, but it'll be too much effort, like, plotting what I was feeling when I was writing. But sometimes out of all the writing that I do, and I write every day. This morning I had to be here, so I got up at 4 in the morning and I did my writing for the day, right? I write every day, and because I write every day, it's like if you took 10,000 photographs of this festival, you would get 5 glorious photographs. You would. Luck by chance. Accidentally. You are a terrible photographer, but you would get 5 photographs. But first do the 10,000. Okay? So I just write and just, I keep thinking, Vakadevi, Saraswati, Mother Mary, jo bhi hai, whichever Devi is today running the world of words. Give me something in all this that I'm producing. Kuch bhi, yaar, ek line de, bhai. And sometimes those lines come. Other days they don't. But you try. And if you're committed, then you try every day. And the really good thing is it's private, na? Ghar mein to karte ho. You're sitting at home, you're writing, you tear it up. What you don't like, you tear up and throw out. The rest, what you like, your editor will tear up and throw out. So, Mara.
True that. This is also such a Mumbai book. It's a city that's been a muse to just so many authors, from our country. Do you have any favorites?
Favorite other people who write on Bombay? Surely you jest.
No, I don't.
Okay. Lots of people. There's a lovely book by Colin Judah called The Clown of Bombay, largely forgotten. There's Suketu Mehta, Maximum City. There is The Ground Beneath Her Feet, Salman Rushdie, Aurora Zogoibi. What a name, Aurora Zogoibi. It's like full cheese and chutney sandwich in which you didn't expect chicken, and now there's chicken as well. It's like that kind of a name. I love those names like that. Yeah, I think those are my top 3. And Nissim Ezekiel's poems, often. Imtiaz Dharkar, I throw open the door, I walk out and I collide with the city. What a lovely poem. So many great poems of Bombay as well. Unsuitable for song as well as for sense. The islands sprout skyscrapers. Adil Jasawala, return us to fire. What a line. Yeah.
Is it a conscious decision to kind of, have the city as a part of the story, or does it just automatically happen because you love it as much as you love it?
I don't love I know Bombay and me have a bad marriage, okay? Like, we hate each other, we can't do without each other, we love each other, we know each... when I come to Shillong, I walk around and I think, beautiful, beautiful cherry trees and nice people smiling, and even everybody's wearing such lovely clothes, and there is lake, and lake ke paas there is pink, 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 and everything is wonderful. And but I don't know how to take a bus. I don't know if there is a bus service. I don't know whether the taxi will cheat me or he will have a meet. I don't know anything about this city, and I have to find out everything. In Bombay, I'm set. We have setting, Bombay, and I have a setting. Totally, I know there will be one thing every day which will make me think, this disgusting city. Okay, this disgusting city. For instance, there are 5 shacks right next to my house. 5 shacks which pretend to be shops. 3 of those shacks are mobile ke dukaan, where people bring mobiles, and every day there is one person who comes and shouts loudly. This is what I hear on the first floor, and I'm thinking, riot, affray, murder. And I go out and it is just one person saying, your mobile that you gave me yesterday is not working. I paid 440 rupees. And I feel like shouting, "Are 440 diya kitna kya milega? Taj Mahal kya? Ghar jana." But I don't. I just think, there is something else. Third floor neighbor is feeding cats. Cats are having good food on third floor and coming down in front of first floor to make tatti. I am telling third floor neighbor, please do not feed cats. He is saying it is my dharma. I am thinking, feed cats, feedum catum. Where is that in the great Hindu scripture? Is that anywhere? But of course, if it is like a Hindu telling a Roman Catholic these days that it is his dharam, you say, okay, sir, don't worry. I will humbly clear cat shit from the door, and I will wrap it in a little baggie, and I will take it to market and throw it away. What can you do?
By the way, I love...
But on the other hand, the presence of the city, the aggressive invasion of the city is unstoppable. Like if you live in Bombay, You want to write about another city. Like I was in Boston for a while, and I loved Boston. Nobody spoke to me, and I spoke to no one. So the words were like bubbling inside me because I have words. I like talking to people. Right? And I wrote 2 novels while I was there in 3 months. I was writing because I was not talking to anybody. I loved Boston, and I thought I must write a book set in Boston about this mad writer who has lots of words and is like lost in Boston and wants to write about Boston. It didn't happen. I couldn't. I have like about 300,000 words of that novel. One day maybe I'll be able to find something in it. But right now, Bombay invades. You don't get choices. You don't get to say, okay, I then now will think about you, Bombay, and write. It's like, yeah. Nick. And then you write. Yeah.
That sounds about accurate.
Yeah, no? Yeah.
But I have to tell you how much I really enjoyed the little Shillong in The Education of Yuri. There's a character called Luigi who is fairly interesting and brings a wee bit of a havoc in Yuri's life.
He has come from St. Placid or whatever that. St. Edmunds. He has come from St. Edmunds. So he speaks like all St. Edmundsians. He's got a little bit of attitude and whatnot. And he's come to Bombay. And like, Bombay, I mean, it's not Shillong. Yeah, right, it's not. It's Bombay after all. We had a very strong Northeastern presence in Elphinstone College because it was once a Protestant college, and then the government had taken it over. So the normal route was from Shillong. Either you went to Ferguson in Pune, or you went to Wilson, or Elphinstone. So there's still lots of Northeasterners in the city. And one of my strong memories is going to watch football on a TV, and this young man sitting next to me with a bowl of what I thought was popcorn. And he was crunch, 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 crunch. And then he looked at me and, he said, Khayega? Will you eat some? So I said, yeah. And I put my hand in and crunch, crunch, crunch. I thought, this is not popcorn. Then I looked carefully and found that it was bees. But they were nice bees.
Well, so you've had a taste of those. Yeah. This is also it's set in a very, very specific time. In the 80s, you talk about Indira Gandhi's assassination, Datta Samant and the mill strikes. Do you feel a sense of, while this is a book of fiction, do you feel a sense of responsibility when you're capturing the cultural zeitgeist?
Oh, God. Do I look responsible? Okay. I feel a little sad for the 1980s because they were a time of terrible ugliness. I was like, everything was ugly. I remember what the song was, Yaar Binna Chain Kahan Re. That was the big song. What a disgusting picturization. Like big shirts and large hair. And it was just like the 70s sounded like glorious in comparison. But yet that was the time when I was growing up in the 1980s. In the 1980s, we all wore flying machine jeans. And when you took off your flying machine jeans in the night, your chaddi was blue. It was dark blue. And for one terrified moment, you thought, "Ye mere saath kya hua?" What went down here? And then you realized, okay, the trousers, your sweat, the extra denim ka dye, it's just dyed your underwear blue. That's okay. We'll live with it. But what you don't want to happen is you're slow dancing with someone who's wearing a white dress. Now you're slow dancing with her, and that's all very wonderful. And you're getting closer and closer, which is very nice. And you're beginning to sweat because you're close dancing with a girl. And your sweat is making the jeans slightly wet. And when you say thank you, you have left her with blue marks on her white dress. Gee, Judas Priest, will she ever dance with you again? Would you? Nah, see, pretty girl in the audience is saying no. That was the 1980s. Yeah. Sorry, and you can see I'm not even a very good dancer, you could see. But you shuffled about the floor, that was enough. Yeah.
It sounds like that memory came from a very painful place. Language, Yuri moves from studying sciences to studying liberal arts. Language is, really important to him. And also, to the story. You can tell the difference between Yuri from Mahim and his friend from Pedder. They talk different. There are sentences like the bit that Arif, who Jerry read a piece about, he talks with like a lot of Hindi. Will you talk a little about, the decision to kind of, have multiple languages?
Sure. I think, for me, the character comes with the language built in. So as soon as I open an inverted commas for a character, and he's or she's or it or they, which I'm sure will come in later novels. I've had a transgender person in Murder in Mahim, but that time pronouns were not important. At least pronouns were not being discussed. As soon as I open the inverted commas and I say this person is beginning to speak, that person's line must come from their mind, from their life experiences, from their encounter with English, right? Since I'm writing in English. And there are times when this becomes really difficult because you have characters who don't speak English, right? But the character must speak in English in your book. So this time I thought, let it go. Just let it go. We'll manage. Readers manage. After all, I've read books that are set in Italy, and someone says, grazie. And I figure it out. And some person saying thank you. And now you've got Google, man. Simply put it in Google if you don't know the line, and you'll find out. So I wanted, what I have loved about my city also, and this is truly loved, is the fact that it is one of the world's great anglers of the English language. It takes the English language and makes it its own. So I'm pretty sure prepone happened in Bombay. Yeah? Then what we used to call voluntary country, okay? Which is voluntary contribution. Whenever someone is asking, hey, iska birthday hai, chal, everybody give 10 rupees. You say, one more voluntary country, yeah, main mar jaunga voluntary country dekh ke. So voluntary country is happened into the book. So one of the just the delights of being a writer is that you shouldn't, but you eavesdrop on everybody. Like, you're just listening into conversations that everybody's having because you're doing your work, you're recording how they talk. And how they talk will give you clues and hints immediately to who they are. I'm not that kind of a person. And you know this person. They are that kind of a person. They're just completely in denial about how disgusting they are. See, I'm not like that, okay? I turned around and told her straight. You hear that line now and you know. I turned around and told her straight. You wonder where they were looking first that they turned around and told her straight. But you know the persons from those lines. And so you have to sometimes, in Hindustani classical music, I'm told you identify a rag by its pakad, by some notes and a combination of notes. The pakad of the person for me, getting a grasp on the character, is how do they speak. And once they speak, I know how they speak, I'm done. I know lots about their life. I know what they're wearing. I know the kind of underwear they would buy. I know that this guy's mum buys his underwear. And she buys jhangiyan, big, loose things for him on 5-year plan. Yeah.
What is an early experience where you discovered the importance and the power of language?
I suppose, I was a problem child. I think up to about the age of 12 or 13, I was seriously screwed up, I can say. Yeah. It was sort of like I was a messed up child. Then I became a functionally messed up person. Before that, I was dysfunctionally messed up. So for 3 years, I did not speak. So my family was very sure that I was deaf and dumb. Because I paid no attention to anybody. I moved, I didn't speak. And then they went to Nagpur to a church. And the priest was apparently giving a sermon where he talked about, Mother Mary. And he said that she will give you what you want because she's the intercessor for Jesus. Sorry, Baptists, but we're Roman Catholics. That's what we believe. Don't mind now. Okay. So she was saying that. And suddenly, apparently, I shouted, Adili, Adili, please give me Coke. Okay? Adili was, Lady, please give me Coke. And not only did I get Coke to shut me up, now I suddenly discovered that language gets you what you want. You want Coke at midnight mass, someone gets you Coke. After that, it was like joy. I'm going to talk. I'm going to talk all the time, and I'll get a lot of what I want when people will just ask me to shut up. Like, please stop. We'll do it as long as you just please. Okay. But otherwise, I think, okay, the real answer to that. I mean, that was the fun answer. The real answer, I think, was in the making of my first poem, which is in Asylum. Chemical soup stilled, it is a harsh harbor we have found for you. Metaphor, simile, rhythm, meaning, communication, wanting to, doing it, working on it, playing with it, teasing it, moving words around, seeing how they work, figuring it out, pressing it down on the page, holding it there, praying that the next time you read it, it'll be all right, it'll be all right, it must be all right. Reading it the next time, thinking it must be all right. Reading it out to friends who tell you that it is all right. Then you've discovered what you want to do. Now the thing is, how do you make money on it? And in poetry. But that was it. I think that just, okay, for me, writing is about language, and language is about staining. It's about mud and sweat and body fluids and like excitement at some fundamental level. So the greatest fun I have is when I'm writing. The most terrifying thing is when you're writing also, because you're walking a bridge that you are building as you walk it. So each word is your next step, and you're hoping that it will hold, and sometimes it doesn't, and you're in free fall. And then the poem, the short story, the novel dies on you, and there's a moment of mourning, of loss. You start again because the joy is there, and it's going to come back, and it'll happen. It should happen. It must happen. I don't even know how to say it. It's like, how do you explain why you like running in the morning if you like running in the morning? The things you can say, but when you've said them, you feel like, nahi, ye bhi nahi hai. It's not this only. There's something more to this that I want to talk about. And maybe that's also the secret, that for some people there is experiences to be held close to the heart and nurtured and in silence taken out and looked at and enjoyed and put away. And for some people, experiences to be shared in a banquet where everybody will come and eat and enjoy this together. Yeah? And I'm that person. I'm one of those, the kind of person who wants experience to be a banquet. I want to tell you about everything. I want to tell you about what happened yesterday on the way. That may also be part of it. Yeah?
That makes a lot of sense. Thank you so much for that. We have about 10 minutes, which means we can open this up for questions.
This is an AMA. Ask anything you want, including money. I'm only saying money because, like, now everybody talks about sexuality pretty openly. So money is the last thing that people don't talk about. Power cut? There's a person in pink waving.
No, I think she was waving to a friend.
Yeah, but I like to do that. I like to make them ask questions then. There. Okay, lovely. So, can you get him a mic, please? He might need amplification.
I walked in at the tail end, okay, but I got the last phrase, which was asking about money. Okay? So talking about money.
You came for the last 6 seconds. I love your cojones. Go for it, man. Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah. At my age, that's not something that's necessarily a compliment. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, this morning, a father and son wood craftsperson, came to my office, and that's one reason why I was late. So they brought this beautifully carved piece of woodwork, which shows the double-decker bridge in Nongriat. Carved from one piece of wood, taken them 3 months. Even the intricate rootlets and the branches were all carved by chiseling behind the wood, and it's one piece. Took them 3 months. Okay. So a book, which is a literary creation, or a piece of wood sculpture like this, how does one place a value on it? Because at the end of the day, you have to price the book, or you have to price the piece of art. What's the process for that?
Are you asking, like, why does the education of Yuri or a book like that cost 700 rupees? Or are you asking how much I was paid when I was writing Yuri? Which one of it, or both?
Well, perhaps you might have been paid a lump sum, for a book that would have been commissioned.
I
or
like
you,
the idea of lump sum. Lump sum seems like something that would sit on your lap and you could pat on the head and, it would be, let us say that lump sum is a little bit of a, not much of a lump, but never mind. The pricing of a book, I think you should ask publishers more than anything else because authors have no control over it. But it is based on the fact that young people today will spend 200 rupees on coffee without thinking about it and urinate the coffee out the next morning. But when they are told that they should buy a book and feed their minds and, and train their brains to think, will tell you that books are very expensive. They have their priorities. They like coffee. Their brains can go take a hike. So therefore the price, because you're not selling those many copies, you have to price it higher to cover your costs. So if, for instance, everybody was buying books regularly, then you could price books at $100. But people, a good example, Jaipur Literary Festival, 225,000 visitors one year, 20,000 books sold. So, you want more books, you want cheaper books, please buy books. I'm telling you why you buy a book. Now, and I'm saying this to the young people in the audience. I'm not talking to the people who are readers. I'm talking to the young people in the audience, okay? If you buy a book and you read a book, you are planting a seed in your head. 20 years from now, that seed is going to be a tree. And many books will mean a forest of trees inside your head. That's the forest of ideas. Whenever you need an idea, you will walk through the forest of trees, the forest of ideas that is in your head. And you will pluck ideas from that forest without even thinking. But if you don't read, you'll have a little field where your mind is, and you'll have little transplants there, small little things that happened when you watched Netflix and happened when you went out with your friend and all four of you sat at a coffee shop and all four of you looked at your own phones. You'll have a little field like that. So do yourself a favor. Buy a book. Buy another. Buy several books. Buy second-hand books. Read them. Read every day. Train your brain. You want to know one easy way to be successful? A trained brain. And a trained brain is a reading brain. Simple. Now, I've said this a length and breadth of the country. And out of that, about 5 people have listened. Okay? I don't expect you to be any different. But when people talk about how development is required, and how things have to get better in this city or that state or that country, we're talking about such large things that no one thinks I'm responsible for that, right? But you are responsible for your brain. And if you're not going to be feeding your brain by buying books and reading, you'll just get politicians telling you what development is, which means really in 2 words, development according to the politicians is cut trees.
I can't think of a better place to end this conversation.
Yes, we'll do cheers.
Cheers.
There's nice rice beer available.
Okay, we're done. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here. Thank you so much, Jerry. I have to say a quick thank you to Mary for making this happen. I hope you guys have a brilliant time for the next 3 days because I know there's a lot happening. Thank you.
And please don't treat each session as a little bit of tamasha that you have seen and then finished and now you can go and have a little cup of tea. Go look at a book, read a book, choose a book, buy a book, get them signed. Thank you so much.